Welcome back to the Word for the Valley podcast, and we're listening to sermons from Pastor Mike's in-depth teaching through the book of Matthew. And in part 2 of our journey through Matthew 10, Jesus prepares his disciples for the reality of persecution. And it's not just from the outside, it will come from religious leaders, political powers, and even their own families. In this episode, Pastor Mike walks us through how Jesus calls his followers to stand firm, trust in the Holy Spirit, and not be afraid when opposition comes. Let's listen in as Pastor Mike picks up at chapter 10, verse 14.
Now, if they don't want you, verse 14, whoever will not receive you nor hear your words, when you depart from that house or city, shake off the dust from your feet. And it's a bit of an idiom, but the idea holds, I think, in our minds. When you leave that house, you leave that city, just take everything out and dump it off and move on. Don't carry any bitterness. Don't leave the house and then write a bad report about their house on Airbnb just to make them look bad, right? Don't do that. Just go, move on, just whatever. You don't need to run them down. It didn't work out. They don't want you there anymore. Conveniently say goodbye. Smile. Smile away, boys, right? Smile, right? Just smile, get out of town, and move on to what's next. It's okay. What you can't do is you can't stay and trying to argue them. Because they're not going to be won by arguing. None of this is militant. None of this is combatant. Sadly, we've seen so much of that even in and around the church over the COVID issues. People getting militant on stuff they have no idea about. We don't know. I don't know about the vaccine. I don't know. There's so much we don't know. COVID, I don't know. I'm trying to take a stand, make everybody do it our way. I'm not going to win anybody that way. Plus, it's not our message anyway. Right? To get into a contentious arrangement, they don't want you there anymore, then just leave. It's okay, just leave. Now, assuredly I say to you, it will be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city. One of the things that allows us just to leave it kind of this openly is that we know God will deal with it. And God will deal with it more firmly than we would, right? If he's promising judgment on these Jewish cities that they're going to, that would be harsher than the fire and brimstone he brought on Sodom and Gomorrah, you can rest assured, and by the way, those Jewish cities have experienced more hardship in the last 2,000 years than Sodom and Gomorrah did in its time. You can rest assured that God will see to it to have our backs. If they treat us badly, we don't have to fight back. We can rest assured that he will. I've seen God do some pretty remarkable things to clear the way and to vindicate his people. Sometimes even in my own life, I've seen things already that when I saw it happen, it was shocking to me. It was humbling. I can't believe that you did that to get that person out of the way so that we can move on and do that. It was just, it just filled me with awe and terror in some ways. You would actually take a life so that this ministry could move on, get this out of the way, get them unimpeded. You would do that, yes. Right? And for these cities, even worse. Now, verse 16, behold, I send you out as sheep. Sheep in the midst of wolves. Now, the running joke is, what is a sheep called that is in the midst of wolves, right? The running joke. Dinner, right? Sheep in the midst of wolves is dinner, right? God makes nearly every animal either predator or runner, right? They either have these defense mechanisms where they can hide or flee. That means that they are a runner. They are a fleer. They are lower on the food chain. He gives other animals talons, claws, right? The ability to kill quickly, right? Certain animals, those are predators. Sheep are neither of those two things. Right? They are somewhere in the middle of predator and prey. walking lunch for wolves, right? If they're not next to their shepherd. That's why a shepherd is so important for sheep, right? But the idea is that the sheep don't fight off the wolves. They let the shepherd do it. I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. Therefore, be wise as serpents, right? It's okay to use wisdom to survive. The wisdom of a snake is it doesn't have any arms or legs and still lives. That's the wisdom of the snake, right? So be wise. It's okay to survive. It's okay to use your wisdom, your God-given intuition and understanding to be able to survive, but harmless at the same time as doves. You don't use that same intuition to strike or to hurt or to get after somebody else. Wise as serpents, harmless as doves. Now, but beware of men, for they will deliver you up into councils and scourge you in their synagogues. You're to be like a sheep. They will not be like sheep. The rules that apply to God's people are not the rules that apply to everybody else. And sometimes the game doesn't seem fair. That's the game. That's the game. The rules are determined by the powerful, the influential, the wealthy. They're the ones who determine the rules. If Mark Zuckerberg didn't have as much money, power, and influence as he has, there's no way he would even be he would be incarcerated by now with the stuff that they've done in Facebook, right? But he has a lot to say. He has a lot of influence. He's got good lawyers, these kinds of things, right? He's finding all the loopholes to navigate these kinds of things, and now it's dumb is what it is, right? It's just trying to rebrand the whole thing to see it through to the next stage. And you're just like, how does that? And then the church down the street who doesn't account its balance or budget right, the IRS is like down their throat. How's that fair? It's not. It's not supposed to be fair. They're going to come after the church. They're going to come after his representatives, Christ's ministers. He says that's okay. You just need to realize it. The attack is actually going to be threefold. Synagogues, it's religious. Next in verse 18, governors, so it'll be political. Then in verse 21, brothers, it'll be familial. Your persecution is going to come on three fronts. It's going to come from religious people who want to maintain their religious superiority. It's going to come from political individuals with power, and then it's going to come from the closest of your family. So beware of men. They will deliver you up to councils and scourge you in their synagogues. You will be brought before governors and kings for my sake now, as a testimony to them and to the Gentiles. So it's the political rulers now. But when they deliver you up, he says, do not worry. Again, one of those instructions in the Bibles that just feels a little bit like a carrot on a stick, right? Be anxious for nothing. I've always wished that it wrote something like, try not to be anxious for about most of the stuff, right? It's like anxious, worry, it's like the only thing I'm really good at, right? I don't even have to try. I worry and I don't even try. I worry when I don't want to worry. I'm telling myself, don't worry, it's okay, it's going to be fine, don't worry. And now I'm up all night worrying about how I'm not worrying, kind of thing, right? Driving ourselves crazy. But again, it speaks to the trust. God put you there. He called you to go. You're delivering his message. You're doing it his way, and now you're getting beat for it. It's okay. This is part of the mission. It's part of the call. Don't worry about it. He actually says, when they deliver you up, don't worry about how or what you should speak. Try not to prepare a case ahead of time to win your freedom or to win your argument. For it will be given to you in that hour what you should speak. For it is not you who speak, but the Spirit of your Father who speaks in you. Now, let me make this point because this oftentimes gets used out of context. Where ministers, pastors, who don't like to study and prepare ahead of time, take this verse as their excuse to go play golf a lot and trust the Lord for a message when they show up on Sunday morning, right? The context here is not ministry. The context here is not church. The context here is not preaching. The context here is Roman civil jurisprudence in front of a judge with a lawyer giving an account for a crime you didn't commit. That's the text and the context for this. All right? I believe that every ministers always say, well, I'm going to just trust the Lord. Well, why not trust the Lord when you're studying? Why do you have to wait while you're delivering the message to trust the Lord? And listen, everybody who delivers a message has to trust the Lord to deliver the message. That doesn't mean you don't study. You're to be a workman, showing yourself to be approved, rightly dividing the word of truth. Right? Do your due diligence. God will give you, I find that God leads me in my study and then he leads me in my delivery. And sometimes what he leads me to do in my study, I don't actually get to deliver. I'll look at my notes later and I missed my 3 most important points, right? And I have to trust that somehow or another, God got his points out to us at this time. The strange thing, when we do 2 services, I battled this for a little while, where I felt like I had to replicate both messages amongst 2 services. Where, the first service, and then that first service, those were good points. I didn't even have them in my notes. I would go back afterward. I got to write those down quick. I don't want to forget those good points, those good stories that came out on the fly. And the Lord's like, listen, those are 2 different groups of people. Don't try to duplicate the second, the first service in the second service. The second service is the second service. Let it be the second service. So I had to do I had to make an effort to scrub my brain, start over. I got my outline, my basic notes, but kind of allow it to flow the way it needs to flow for the next go, right? There's always that, trusting the Lord in the delivery, right? But it doesn't mean that you can abandon the effort of study, right, in the church. Now, if you're before a judge, you don't need to go study all the law books to figure out how to get out. It's going to be an opportunity of testimony. You just need to trust me, and I will give you the words. You're there because you're ministering. I will make sure to back you up. That's what he says there in verses 20 and 21, or 19 and 20. Now, verse 21 says, now, brother will deliver up brother to death, and a father his child, and children will rise up against parents and cause them to be put to death. This is the unbelievers within the family attacking the believers. And the greatest persecutions in our lives are always going to come from those who are naturally closest to us. I was just thinking again of John Piper. He's got a son out there just ranting and raving on the failures of Christianity and the failures of his own father in ministry. Somebody who's been faithful to the Lord for decades. And his son is his biggest accuser and adversary. All over YouTube. Got some following. Nobody would even know who that kid is if John Piper hadn't been used by the Lord the way John Piper has been used. He's using a platform that God gave his family to attack the man that God used in his family. It's painful. Hear John talk about it. It is gut-wrenchingly painful. Ministers I know would give up their entire congregation to see their children saved. I will walk away from this ministry tomorrow if you guarantee that my kids will be saved. But we do not get that choice. We don't get that choice. Our only choice is whether or not we're going to be faithful to God's calling. That works out in their lives the way it works out. And sometimes it works out badly, painfully. Brothers pursuing brothers, fathers, children against their parents to put them to death. And you'll be hated by all, in verse 22, for my name's sake, but he who endures to the end will be saved. Now, when they persecute you in this city, flee to another. Okay, wise as serpents. It's okay to escape a beating. If you know they're coming to get you, don't stay. Paul got let down out of Damascus in a basket. It's okay, right? Oh, the most noble thing is me to stay here. Sometimes the most accurate thing, the most noble thing is for you to go. Now, sometimes God will say, stay there, right? Dietrich Bonhoeffer, during the rise of Nazi Germany, right? Fled Germany to America. When he got out of Germany, he was convicted that he needed to go stand with his brothers in the Lutheran church that were being killed at the hands of the Nazi regime. And he went back, tried to assassinate Hitler and failed, and then died in Germany, right? So was he right or wrong? Yes. No. What do you mean? Was he right or wrong? He was probably right both times. It was time to go. It was time to go back. Is it okay to assassinate Hitler? That's a different question. If you know Hitler, maybe it is. But that might be the only time, right? God will lead. It's okay. When they persecute you in the city, flee to another. For surely I say to you, you will not have gone through the cities of Israel before the Son of Man comes. And the idea is that before they finish their ministry, Jesus will have followed up on their ministry to follow up in behind them. That's the context that we're talking about here. He's not talking about the rapture. He's not talking about the second coming. He's just talking about his ministry with his disciples at that time. Now he says, a disciple is not above his teacher, nor a servant above his master. This is imperative, important to remember. Again, I see some things in and around the church. People want to be nicer than Jesus. People want to be more popular than Jesus. People want to be more dynamic than Jesus. They want to be more exciting than Jesus. And you're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I think a lot of those people, by the way, they see the church as a soft target. And they're just using the church for their own advancement, by and large. Here's a captive audience. They're going to listen to me week in, week out. I can build my own platform. I can make my own thing. I can make my own show and kind of use it that way. When life and ministry, that's not it. A disciple is not above his teacher, nor a servant above his master. We're the servant, he's the master. It's enough for a disciple, he says in verse 25, to be like his teacher and a servant like his master, right? That's my goal is to point to Jesus. If I can point to Jesus while being like Jesus, that's it. I don't ever want to get out in front of Jesus, right? You've heard me say this before. Calvary Fellowship is not Mike's church. Don't do that to me. This is Jesus' church that Mike happens to pastor for a season. But at some point in time, it's either the rapture or a funeral. I ain't planning to stay here all that long, all right? I think this is a short-term gig. This is a temporary ministry, right? We're waiting for heaven. We're waiting for the more permanent thing. I'm not trying to build a platform to myself. If I was, I wouldn't be in Smoking Dam. I would be out there somewhere cool. I've been doing surveys. I'd figure out right where to hit it, man. I would do it the right way, right? The Rick Warren way. I would figure it out, right? Smoking Dam. Nobody does this in Smoking Dam, right? Nobody even knows where Smoking Dam is, right? It's okay. I really don't care. And frankly, when I watch the Lord work, I don't want to be anywhere else. I don't want to be anywhere else. It's enough for a disciple to be like his teacher and a servant like his master. Now look, if they've called the master of the house Beelzebub, Satan, basically, the Lord of the Flies, it's a name that they would use for the devil. If they've called your master the devil, how much more will they call those of his household? Right? Yeah, he says in the Gospel of John, if they hated me, be sure that they will hate you also. Be really leery when people who really hate Jesus like you a lot. I hear people sometimes say, well, I got so much more fellowship with people not in the church. Yeah. Be careful. That may speak more to you than you know. If they hate Jesus, they're going to hate you too. They're going to hate you too. But be like your master. Therefore, do not fear them, he says in verse 26. For there is nothing covered that will not be revealed, and hidden that will not be known. Now, we'll see the remainder of these instructions next week. He's not done. There's more. We'll see the remainder of these instructions next week. But just let me leave you with this, right? As I worked down through this list, Julie and I were sitting last night in the evening. I said, Julie, read over those verses and tell me which ones of those verses could a 20-year-old not do? Just some adult, but young. Doesn't even have to be trained. Tell me which one of those just a normal 20-year-old couldn't do. And she's like, verse 8. Yeah, I said, yeah, but that's only for the disciples. That's not for us. Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out demons. That's the exception. But in regards to the example, what here can't we do? It's actually all very easy if we're willing to humble ourselves. He doesn't ask them to go out and get a great education. Make sure you get your MDiv, your PhD, right? Be really highly educated, right? Study the Greek, know the Hebrew. He doesn't ask them to do that. You can't go to your ministry until you start with, 90% of your yearly need, and that's going to, usually when the missions agency does it, projects out way higher than what anybody should actually live on. So you're going to need $1 million. So raise your support to $1 million, and then you can go. You're like, who needs $1 million to be a missionary in a third world country? What are you, it's weird, but this is what we're going to do, right? He didn't tell them to do that. He doesn't tell them to figure out the plan ahead of time to make sure they know how to execute it all, so they have the 3-year plan and the 5-year plan and the 10-year plan and the 25-year plan, and they want to make sure that you know exactly how this is going to go and just get on the plan and do it. He doesn't ask them to do any of this. Ministry for the Lord in regards to the kingdom of God is so simple. A child can do it. But oftentimes it's too simple for us to do because we don't want to be simple. We want to be smart. We want to be rich. We want to be powerful. We want to be known as somebody. They need to know my name. They don't need to know your name. You're going to die. I'm going to forget your name. Right? We don't need to know your name. You need to know his name. They need to be right with him because they're going to die. And they need to be ready to meet him. And that's our ministry. If we can just humble ourselves. But so much of this is don't worry, don't provide, don't fear. Basically saying, don't act like you. Whatever your first response would be to these situations, probably don't do that. Rather, instead, just let it go. Chill out. Just move on. Keep going. Just do your thing. Right? It makes it so much more simple. I love that about the Lord. He can use anybody. He can use anybody. But he oftentimes won't use somebody you think they are somebody. You have to in some ways recognize that you're a nobody. So, oh, God can't use me, I'm a nobody. Now you've qualified. Now you're ready. Because when God uses you, people will see Jesus as a result of it. And that is the goal to all of it. That is the goal to all of it. I sat a little bit with Jordan yesterday just talking and said, Jordan, someday I'm going to be dead. He's like, don't say that. I'm like, dude, it's true. Someday I'm going to die. I don't even know when. It could be sooner rather than later. You seen the traffic on the strip lately? Who knows, kind of thing. Like, I don't know. I don't know what's cooking on side of me kind of thing. I don't know, some nursing something that's going to blow up at some point in time. I don't know. No, I'm hoping for the rapture, then we can all go together, right? I don't have to worry about any of this other stuff. But none of this is a testimony to me. We end up trying to make it a testimony to ourselves, something that resonates for us, to our memory, to our glory, to our benefit. When literally it is so much more fun to not worry about any of that stuff. Just go play. Just go do your ministry. Just go love somebody. When you're done, love somebody else, right? Go serve somebody. When you're done, go serve somebody else. So much more stress to try to figure out how to get life for us, right? I know somebody. When I talk to them, sometimes I'm so tired. I was always tired. I'm always so tired. And I'm like, if I thought about life as much as you did and trying to figure out how to make life work as much as you do, I'd be tired all the time too. Right? It's so much easier just to go do. Right? Obviously, take the time with the Lord, spend, think, do the things you need to do. But if you find, like your phone, when you try to pull something up on your phone and it can't find it and it just spins and spins and spins and you realize after like 10 minutes, like it's not coming, right? You hope that your phone notifies you and tells you that the connection's lost or something's lost. Otherwise, you just watch the thing spin for hours and you're like, what? Where is it? And it's just spinning and spinning. Some people live with that little thing in their head spinning all the time because they're trying to figure out how to get something for them. And you don't need to. You're already loved. You're already saved. You just have to receive it. You're already ushered into the kingdom of God if you're willing to go. You just have to drop all that other stuff, humble yourself, and come to the Lord. You do that, in some ways, life is remarkably simple. Not easy, right? They got persecuted for this stuff. But simple. It takes a lot of that guesswork out of it.
All right, we learned that ministry in the kingdom of God isn't complicated. It's simple enough for even a child to do. But that simplicity often challenges our pride. We want to be smart, successful, remembered. But the truth is, it's not about our name. It's about His. All right, thanks for joining us again. This is the Word for the Valley podcast. So long, everyone.